right. Welcome to the podcast, Celine.
Thank you.
Welcome to Big Conversations.
It's taken a really long time.
Yeah, we have tried to get it together
A month?
before even the symposium.
Yeah.
So to start, you are going to tell me about yourself. Then I understand you.
You know, when people ask that question, everything about yourself blanks out. But let me see. What about me? Just generally?
Yeah, generally. Who are you? Who do you think you are?
What a serious question. Well, I'll start with my names, since you didn't introduce me.
Okay, I'm still going to write in the bio.
Janice Celine Nantumbwe. I am 25, going on to 26. Anyway, I'm a lawyer by profession. I'm in the process of enrollment, so I'll soon be an advocate, so to speak. Yeah. I work at a law firm.
That's when you'll be called to the bar, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I work at a law firm called KTA Advocates as an executive assistant and as a junior associate. Yeah. My interests, I love to read. I was always that kid in school who would have a novel in her hand. So when Wattpad came out, just know. I don't know if you know what Wattpad is. Yeah. I lived and breathed Wattpad.
Do you also write?
I don't write. Okay, I used to try to write, but... Yeah, you know when you read back and you're like, okay, this is not good. It sucks. So, no, I don't write as per se.
Okay, what have you been reading? That's now a very good start.
Right now?
Yeah. What stuff have you been reading? What do you read anyway? I don't know. I have a lot of stuff. I don't read so much, but I have a lot of work to read.
Work? Like
no,
or
books, books and stuff from a lot of content in general. I have books from fiction to fairy tales, love stuff to normal.
Love stuff like Mills and Boone.
Yeah. All that stuff. Then I have self-conscious, self-help stuff, a lot of that. So, but I'm reading a lot of Mark Manson. Who else? I don't know the guys. But I know their books are interesting.
So you prefer to listen to podcasts, audiobooks. Okay.
Audiobooks. Then sometimes I try to read e-notes and stuff. Then I sleep off. So, and I forget. I don't. Maybe something comes back to apply when I read.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it depends on what I'm reading before I get bored. So that's why I'm asking, what are you reading?
I think I'll start with saying that's the beauty of reading. You'll never actually know where you know some facts from or some stuff from, but it's from reading. So what I like to read, definitely I started out loving to read. I would say the first book I learned how to love to read from, I don't know if that makes grammatical sense, was Matilda. My grandmother bought it for me. Matilda. And it took me on a journey.
Wait, I watched the movie.
Yeah. Okay. The movie doesn't do the book justice. Okay. I would say that's for a lot of books, that movies come out from. But yeah, it got me into reading sucks you into another world. I think that's what I love about it. And you kind of just disappear into that world for a time. It's not like watching movies, because watching movies you don't have to really concentrate that much. But for reading, you want to disagree. Yes, because
I also still have an issue with the movies. I need to concentrate. If I don't give them, I'll get so distracted and I'll be off the movie. Yeah.
But you can still get what a movie was about, whether you weren't paying 100% concentration. But a book has a thing whereby you get lost in it for an hour or two and you just keep flipping pages and your concentration needs to be at 100%. So the way it sucks you in, that's what I love about books. So yeah, I loved obviously from reading fiction. Then I got into the whole vampire, not Twilight. I don't remember which particular series it was. I think it was called the Night series, but it was about mythical creatures, vampires. That was in my teens. Then I got more interested in African literature. I'd say that's when I really, really started to love to read even more, because up until this point you're reading about European people, you're reading about winter and summer and things you've never seen possibly, or you just experience once in a while when you travel. But when you read an African book and you can really you can really relate to everything that they say, every small thing. So my first African book I read was Nervous Conditions. by Tsitsi. I'm sure I've murdered the name, but it's an amazing book.
I have not read any African literature. I should do it myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's incredible. I love it. In fact, it's my favorite genre. I feel it's more authentic.
What is it about?
The book Nervous Conditions.
Yeah.
It was made in the 80s. So it's about a girl called, I've forgotten her name. Nyasha was a cousin. Anyway, It's about a young girl who grows up in a village, very remote area, somewhere in Rhodesia, when Zimbabwe was still Rhodesia. And she grows up in a very poor family, but she has an uncle who went abroad. And so it talks about like basically the connotations of getting educated and how that elevates you in status, because at a point in time, the uncle comes back for her, gets her from the village and takes her to his home. Yeah, where he was also a headmaster and whatnot. So you see her mind being opened up as she becomes more and more educated. So I would also say it has undertones of female empowerment and feminism, because it has a lot of play on, women being educated but still being treated a certain way just because of their sex or gender. So yeah, it was interesting seeing that stuff, how concentrated it was in the 80s, but it's still not changed much, even in the 2022s, I would say.
So do you then believe there is possible change that will ever happen? Do you believe that activism is bringing about any change, or it's how it is? I
would definitely say that there has been change. Like, we cannot deny the fact that there are more women in school, most times, actually in most places in the world, more than men, more women in the workplace. But there's still those things that I feel human beings feel like are innate to them, with a male and female gender, which I do not agree with, obviously. So even things like sexual assault are actually still very prevalent in the workplace and in schools. But we've come this far, but we're still suffering with things like that. And it's shocking to see that they still happen. But they do.
Do you live in a world where you believe the world is a vacuum, where there's no good or bad? Because when you speak of, I don't condone no sexual assault or anything, but whenever I have conversations with people and they bring up this and they act like it's surprised, you then tend to see the world in a perspective where there's no good, where there's no bad.
I get what you mean, that there'll always be bad no matter what.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, isn't it better to then draw measures around the fact that bad exists and this comes from arguments when you mentioned feminism, and arguments I see sometimes online where they've banned people for telling women to be more protective of themselves, and people keep saying, no, we shouldn't blame the women for that. But look, it's the truth and the reality of things is they're bad people. So you're better well equipped when you get measures against the bad that already exists, because you do not know how you can get rid of the bad.
That's like putting the burden on you for people not to do bad things to you, which is not fair. Okay. So when you put it in the context of women, if I'm not mistaken, it's normally around the fact that, women should dress conservatively, women shouldn't go to a man's house alone, women shouldn't do certain things which provoke men. But that's to us leaving it, first of all, likening you guys to animals who cannot control yourselves. And number two, leaving it to us to have the responsibility not to be sexually assaulted or raped, just to say that there are bad people out there, so you rather take precaution. Why should we live in a world like that when we know it doesn't have to be like that?
No, the world really doesn't have to be like that.
It all comes down to conditioning.
Okay.
How you grow up treating women, or seeing your dad or uncles treating women, will definitely play a part into how you treat women.
Yeah.
So if we keep saying that, women should take accountability, not to do certain things.
Well, but you see how our parents have raised us is exactly like that. My elder sister is up to now. She's 10 years older than me. No, I'm joking, but she's
quite older than 10 years, really?
She's really quite older than me. But since she's still at home, there's still that curfew stuff, because the father feels like, my daughter doesn't have. And I'm younger. But when I was still at home, I had such freedoms. But this comes from a position, because my dad understands that, I would wish for a better society, but it does not exist. So I have to put some measures just to protect my daughters from these kind of things.
I'll ask you, how far do you think socialization goes? All the things you believe, even your religion, all the values you hold, your morals.
Yeah, far to the extent to doubting God, the existence.
Yeah, generally, I believe, and I know actually for it to be true, that most of the things we believe and the morals we hold are because of the way we've been socialized. It may not be everything, and people may, say that there's a reason for that and whatnot. But what I'm trying to say is we build the society we want to. It's the same reason 10 years, 15, even 50 years from now, it's going to be absolutely all right being homosexual. Because that's a society we're moving into. People are becoming more accepting of that. So I understand the generation our parents grew up in was completely different. And your father is obviously justified in giving your sister curfew and whatnot because he believes that's how he protects her.
Yeah.
But you as Mark, when you have a child, when you have a son, what are you going to teach him about women?
Well.
And what are all your other friends going to teach their sons about women? And the same thing, what are you going to teach your daughter? Imagine your daughter growing up in a world where she's scared for her life because of her sex, her gender. Is that a fair life to live in and just say, that's the way it is?
No.
Protect yourself, have curfew. Yeah. So that's what we're trying to fight for. So to answer your question, there has been incremental change, but not a lot has changed. Unfortunately, at the core of it, there's still a lot of misogyny and patriarchy. To fight that needs us to have an overhaul of our mentality. And for more men to read books that open up their minds to what feminism is actually about. Not this, the ones they call the witch hunting feminists on Twitter. Because I believe that pushes the conversation towards misandry as opposed to equality.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not, I do not agree with you. Sometimes I also want to play devil's advocate so that people really understand.
Yeah.
I have a son that's growing up, so whenever I put up these conversations, part of why this podcast is also in existence is for him. I do not spend so much time with him. So, but I know he will listen to all this stuff. So part of why I produce this content is, if I can't pass on the knowledge, the podcast can. Though, I feel the fight and the approach is very unrealistic. Yeah? I don't believe in change by distraction. And this is what we see online. This is how the message of feminism is spread online, how it's tainted to make it seem like it's men's fault the world has bad things happening. Yeah? But also, do not forget that this is how we are raised. This is how men are raised. This is how we are raised. As societies, our beliefs, like you talked, our beliefs go back from from how my grandfather used to act, to how I saw my dad act, and to all those years of just learning that. I could be lucky to get exposed to new information, and I unlearn a lot of bad things, but it depends on what works. Yeah, people like winning in life, and they don't really like changing systems that win.
When it's favoring you.
Yeah, a lot of people are like that. They like, aren't you that selfish with some things? And you just...
when it's about a social construct that undermines so many people. That's like to me saying that it's okay for a building not to have a ramp because I'm able-bodied. And I prefer to use the stairs.
Okay.
Why can't we live in a more inclusive world? But let me let you finish. I interrupted you.
No. Why can't we move in a more inclusive world? Because that's like imagining if the world is a fair place to live in.
There's a time, Mark, that you are considered to be a monkey because of the color of your skin. You are considered to they used to liken us to animals. Put us in zoos. You were a slave. You were chattel.
Okay. That's a time.
That's it, yes, but at a point in time, people say that that's not fair. Human rights should be a thing. And now, you're a black man. You don't have as many rights as a white man, but you have more rights than me, ideally.
How do you mean I have more rights than you? What rights do you think
And not in the law, but generally. If we were in the village, you'd probably go to school. If we were in the same family, you'd probably go to school before me because I'm going to be shipped off to another man's house. Even though I'd also want an education. So I get what you mean about wanting a system that favors you, and that's very brave of you to say. Most people won't really admit that, the patriarchy favors me, so this is how things work, and there's a way it works like that. But
let me first correct you. First of all, no.
That's what I got. So you can clarify.
I know that it does favor me. That's one, but I'm not proud of that. But it's how it works. It's how things are working.
They don't work though.
They don't?
No, it does not work.
Okay. How do you mean it doesn't work?
Think about the fact that even with like the economy.
What's your idea of a better world?
Me doing what I want, not because of the color of my skin, not because of my sex, but generally because it's something I want to do.
Right now, what do you mean me doing what I want? And
everyone who looks like me being able to do what they want.
The price of freedom is very expensive. I don't think when you say you want to do what you want,
pursue the dreams I want to pursue, not be tied down to a man just because it's expected of me from society, and to be in an unhappy marriage because of that, not to have children because everyone's telling me that's what I'm supposed to do.
But this happens to the men as well. They keep asking for families when you reach for some parents.
We're not going to lie that the patriarchy only affects women. It affects men as well, especially your mental health, because you're expected to be a certain way. Macho. If you're not macho, you're seen as feminine. And you're not respected as much. If you not provide for a woman. In fact, there's a time, I don't know if it applied to men, that there was a tax called heart tax. When colonialists had just come in, I think you studied about it in school.
Mm-hmm.
Of if you did not have a job, you'd have to pay this tax.
Yeah.
It was an incentive to go out and work. But if I'm not wrong, that was only applied to men. So you're just on your land one day and a white man
Speaking
comes
of
and says,
the taxes from then, because then there's another theory. I had Eddie on the podcast. I just didn't get the notes to verify the information.
Yeah.
So he takes back feminism onto the old systems of, he calls it, well, he says the system, I forget the name of the cult. But they introduced feminism to tax women to work because they needed to collect more taxes. So they give women the whole idea of, you also need to be liberated and free. Yet, what women were doing initially was also still work. Yeah?
But now
it was just a divided world. Men do this kind of work and women do this kind of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we brought labels to it. No, we're weaker. Because there are still things only you can do that I can't do. Yeah.
Apart from give birth.
Well, it's something as well, yeah. It's part of procreation, and it's a really big contributor to the world. So it's the fact that you can do it and I can't do it already shows that we're already different people. But still, even with how the world works, there are things men can do and women really can't do. Is that right or wrong?
I think it's subjective, yeah.
Okay, we don't even have to go so far. Look at the symposium.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't carry tables, but you call guys to carry tables.
I would. I just didn't want to.
Yeah. You would never feel like you want to carry tables. But even if you can, I can give birth, right? I've made enough money to know that I can use scientists to do stuff, all that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a possibility to everything, but there is still the ideal way things work. And this is not
for who?
Proven with results and statistics.
That's like to say women, submission comes naturally to women, which it doesn't. Because that's what the patriarchy feeds on.
Well, but with just my own experiences, I don't know. I think it really does come naturally. It doesn't. I've seen women who are empowered enough still be submissive.
I would find that submission normally comes from love as opposed to obligation. And when it comes from love, it's from a point of, I want to submit to you. But why do you think for the longest time there's been that agitation when women are subjected to submit just because she has to? There's agitation, but when it comes from love, like in a marriage, like what they talk about in the Bible, then it comes naturally. It's
You
not something
believe
that's forced. I have my own. I won't talk about that here. I have my own reservations, but
no,
I
we
do
cannot.
believe.
You cannot have conversations on feminism and skip the conversation around God. It's such a fundamental topic that
It is.
it drives into all these things, because I was going to refer to a lot. I was going to bring up the Bible, and what if you're a Christian and you really believe, then the Bible really dictates that you're submissive. But however, it also tells the man to love the woman. Yeah. So, and we are still asked to go to church. I still have to go back to my Catholic heritage, and the time when I make up my mind that I want to get married, I'll have to go to church. So I'll have to succumb to the laws of the church. But if I've come out from this world, like you said, if men are more exposed to education and they learn all these new things, and we still have to...
I would say it's not mutually exclusive. I believe you can actually still be a feminist or someone who believes in what ideally feminists push for, even though you're a Christian. Because, as I said, at the heart of what God stands for is love. And that's where that submission comes from that he talks about. You see, you can have a different interpretation from me.
Yeah.
Because I believe what's asked for a man is much more than what's asked for a woman in the Bible. For men to love that their wives like God loved the church, so Jesus loved the church, that's a lot. So for me to just submit to you, the way I interpret it is because I trust you. I trust your guidance. Yeah. Not because you're really a man, but you're the man that God has put in my life. Not because of your gender, but because of what value you hold to me. I trust you just as much as I would trust... Yeah, I don't know if you get what I'm saying, but it's not just because you are my husband that I am submitting to you. Because if you're not
I'm thinking by the time we get to the stage where you become my wife, we have come to all those conclusions. You're already satisfied that, you know what?
Well, that's to say, like, people come in marriage for the same reasons.
Yeah, but also, I don't know, like this mantra, you know how I really believe girls spoil more boys than boys spoil girls, and to challenge the patriarchy. I don't know, but it's still stupid, since how society and life really works is a girl my age will be influenced with an older guy. Yeah, then this same girl will influence all the guys my age about habits, about lifestyle, about how they make their decisions with life. A big percentage. This is how life works. This is how I think life works, but I really know it's how life works. When I look into my friends, and how people get married to people who are like 8 years, older than them. So there's much more of that is ignored. And when we bring up all these fights on feminism, we ignore that reality of the quest for equality leaves such a very bad society, because then the boy child is left in a very bad position of where they're not sure of what's really right or wrong.
Who's bringing up this? Who's...
Yeah?
Okay, please finish.
Because when they look at the results that have worked, it's different. When they look at where society wants them to go and what is ideal, like any other good human being will treat anyone better. Like, I do not want to see harm onto you. Like, that's just how it is. That's how I feel. Like, I don't think it's the right way. However, the things you do and you're not sure, like maybe out of ignorancy, and you cause some harm to some people, but in a much more clearer world, you want to do good as people do good to you. So we are left in a society that has the past that has worked. Like, you have to look and see that because I've seen it. When you try and, let's say, cohabit with a woman and you're carefree, there are very, 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 very high chances that you might not mold out to be the man and the husband the society wants. or actually the relationship could break because you are acting as a woman. And these stereotypes don't just come for, there's a history around them. You know how people are, like, even if they said, let me say, what's the craziest stereotype people say? Women from, like, let's say the West have water or weight, things like that. There's still some truth to them. Like, you'd find that that's actually true. Like, there's a big percentage of, like, for people to come up with this was real. So it's the same thing applies. And I've seen it. I try to talk to, like, people who have gone through divorce, and divorce cases are on a rise. And when they talk to me about their marriages, most of them be like, Mark, I failed to be a man. I thought being a friend to my wife could work, or what, or all this mambo jumbo of what, but no, I was undecisive, and eventually women also don't like that. She'll keep comparing you to her father, things like that. And this is the reality people live in. So you cannot wash away how society works to a more theoretical version of how it should work.
But it's not theoretical, though. Again, everything goes down to socialization. Again, as you said, if a woman has grown up seeing her father act a certain way, of course she's going to expect the same things from her husband. But if she sees that same treatment not being given...
So how do you think you can bring about change? Not like you, Celine, but how do you imagine this change coming about where it's a fair world?
First of all, just educating people. Men also educating themselves. Women also educating themselves, because I won't lie, women also hold very misogynistic values and they will stand by them. So I believe with our generation, as you've said, us just having kids and with the generations to come, just teaching them more equitable values about sex and gender. It goes to as much as if you have a daughter, not assuming that she likes pink or that she likes dolls, because that way you're socializing her to be a mother or to like a certain color that's supposed to be associated with her gender. It's the same thing, not assuming that your boy will only like cars and tractors. What if he likes...
How would you raise your son, really? How do you...
Not that you're raising them gender neutral, but just letting them navigate sex on their own. Like, you can teach them to be... Like, there's a reason I can't fix a car. Why is that? Because I was never taught. But I'm pretty sure you know how to do it in the blink of an eye, change a tire and whatnot. Because they assume I don't want to know those things. But it's because I was never taught. And it was assumed that because
have you cared to learn now that you're of understanding and of age?
Yes. I mean, it's dirty, but it's the same reason you should learn how to cook if you don't already know how to cook. It's a survival skill.
Okay, yeah, that's really... I don't know. Men who do not know how to cook are just...
So it's about just not me going, saying that, change, raise your children gender neutral, but raise them with all the skills they need, number one. Raise them to also have an open mind. I think that's one of the things we don't think about enough. You don't know how much you're impacting your child by the things that you say, by the things that you do. You notice most of our traits are from our parents and the things that we see maybe, our teachers or in school. Also taking your kids to schools that don't hold... very patriarchal values.
Like what? Are you attacking single-sex schools?
I mean, it can be a single-sex school, but
traditional schools, do you think they hold patriarchal values? Or, there's two ways to it. I went to one. I've read, there's a friend of mine who has written a book about boarding school and how it affects mental health. So there are very many points raised in there that made sense. Of course,
what's the book called?
I forget the book, but I think I have it.
You can your friend platform.
Yeah, but I'll Google the book. I'll put it in the link. She's I forget her book. So, but the book talks about the the effect of teachers and the effect of boarding school on your child. Now, it has all these fairy tales that are explained in very good English. And they make sense when you read them. But then when you sit down with my dad and you listen to his story of why he had to put me in P1, in boarding school in P1. Actually, in nursery, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was justifiable. Like, it really was justifiable. He would do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality of just not my dad and many more other people in a country like ours, a third world country where, like, survival is, you have to work like 19 jobs to afford a young one, Keron, to afford to go to an Aminyango college.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you look at that and who it made me, you want to sympathize with the book and say that I want better for my children, but then you do not know so much about how the future dictates. And first of all, in the society we are in, again, like I keep referring to, big data is important. Results that have worked actually should be, if you're changing, you have to be
you paid
a Jesus.
attention at the symposium.
you have to be a Jesus to change results that have continuously worked. There has to be so much undoing to the culture, to the government system, and these things, there's a lot of politics around everything else, so it's hard to change all that. So you then just look at all these forms of activism as a joke at some case, because the reality of things is way so different.
I don't agree.
Why so? Because it's and it's not like really person to person basis, but what people ask so much of is for parents to be friends to their children, and that's so hard. It's so impossible. That's like a movie and a director. You're supposed to be a parent, and parents make decisions basing on their experience of what has worked. And in fact, if I had listened to my dad a lot, and believe you me, I was such a rebellious child. If you sat down with my dad, he'll tell you that man, even from like a very young age, his friends were in like, when I was in nursery, my best friend was in P7. So it usually used to give him a lot of headache.
How the hell did that work?
I was from the same village. I was really a social kid. I don't know, but it worked. So with all that rebellion still, you'd argue that, I don't know, I was trying to explain.
We're talking about the book.
Yeah.
And
trying to sympathize with the writer.
Book, but saying that
the effect of the boarding school and the reality of why that's actually a better formula. Because you cannot expect someone who has to go out and look for money is very important. Yeah. So for you to actually access all this knowledge and what decisions like putting you in boarding school at such an early age matter, like top-notch decisions. For you to be somewhere, to be competitive anywhere in life, like that's what has to work. Because you're not alone. You have like a bunch of siblings. All that life stuff. So when you trash it away to just an ideal way of how things should work, like, and just forget the reality of why things are the way they are.
Yeah.
I feel like you want to live in a vacuum.
I don't think, okay, I've not read the book, but I don't think, and you can correct me, that the whole book was about her just being in boarding school. It must have been about the things that happened while she was at boarding school, right? So it's not the issue of taking your children to boarding school, because you understand sometimes financial, situations or whatever is going on at home may make you may have to put your kid in boarding school because of that. But I think it's the things that happen at boarding school that's more important. What kind of school are you putting your child in? Is it just because it's on the child law? Is it just because of the name? What values? And you see, this is a thing I only learned when I went to university, because a bunch of my life I was in international schools, so you call it or whatnot. And in those schools, I wouldn't say they really impact a mindset on you.
Yeah.
But when I went to university, I noticed that, people from this and this girl's school are supposed to act this way. People from this and this boy's school act this way. That's a good and bad thing. But then you'll also hear about schools, I won't mention names, where terrible things used to happen to make kids read.
What do you mean
waking
terrible
up
things
at 4 a.m., having to shower cold as water.
Our system of education, the cram way of things, the UNEP. Now, you've been to this should be the other part of the conversation now that I've learned you went to an international school.
No, let me finish, yeah?
Please.
So what I'm saying is there isn't a certain way that you can act in adulthood based off of the things that were imparted to you in school. There's a certain school I won't mention where the people from there, all they talk about is money and who has what car, who drives what car. It has two opposite effects. One, it makes them work hard because actually they're some of the most successful people in Uganda. But at the same time, it kind of makes them stagnant in that way of thinking. I don't know if you get what I mean. Because that's the bulk of what they talk about and think about. And so what I was trying to bring it back to is those schools really push you to read. I will not deny that because in international schools, man, we're chilling.
A lot.
A lot. But I would say the things I've gotten from my friends who go to the school, very hardworking, but there's a way, for example, they'll talk to their bosses because they are scared of them, because they have learned how to be scared of authority and not be able to speak out for themselves. But even like when you hear about the stories of them having to get canes for, you know, failing a class or having to have their names read out loud while they've failed a class so that they can go in the on stage so that they beat them from there. That is psychological torture. I know people make me in the comments like, you know, you do not know what we went through, you cannot talk from that. But you can see how it impacts them. Yeah. You can see that people now start to ascribe their value and to their intellect, what they can actually do in terms of, you know, marks and grades. And yeah, we can go into that talk a bit more. So what I was meaning is, I don't think she necessarily meant boarding school, because you can take your kid to a good boarding school.
The effect from, before we go into the schools thing, the effect from the schools was, I believe and I don't know, this is not in a bad way. I hope my family doesn't really take it in a bad way. I believe, according to standards, my dad was deadbeat.
Damn.
Because he took me to boarding school for most of the time and decided to go and work, but put school fees. He did what he had to do. So I believe my dad was deadbeat, but I believe being deadbeat is not a bad thing. Exactly. In fact, now, I even take back the apology. That's in the actual fact.
And what do you describe deadbeat as?
The conditions. First of all, I don't want to talk about that.
No, just generally in...
It will look like I'm projecting and they will overread into this podcast. But sure, it means not giving enough time and attention to your children. Yeah? Like not being there for them. But you'd argue the case of what it means to be there for your children. Or were your parents there for you? Of course you're going to say like an obvious yes. But like they were not there. They had things to do. They had careers to chase. Yeah, this is my argument. Like, my dad had things to do. Like, having a child is another thing in life. And maybe that then is the whole thing. Is when are we supposed to have children as human beings?
Yeah, not everyone needs children. Not everyone is mature enough to have children.
Who is mature enough to have children?
You see, I'm one of those people who really believes, you should have a psychological test before having children. Because a lot of the trauma we have is from parents. You may think it's nothing, but man, it's a gift and everything.
You have to play the cards you're dealt with life.
So many people are walking around traumatized.
Everything is
nasty as hell just because of how they were raised.
I am a strong believer of life is simply about your personal development. Like you cannot. There's so much to it. Some people are deadbeat because of who they chose to have children with. Yeah. Some people are emotionally very mature that they would prefer. Like you cannot go into fights with them. Like the greater good is you're affecting the child. So there's a big chunk of men that leave their children just because of that. Because of how insecure they are with the women, and you know how the courts work, you're a lawyer. The women will always take the favor. So until it gets to a level of like secondary school where the child is of age, and then the man can have mature conversations and access to the child, a lot of that happens here. I say this because in like 10 of my friends, and I have a lot of married friends, There's a lot of grown people, my friends. But this is what has happened in like 10, 8. So I don't take those numbers for granted. Then I read people's stories. I do not want to wash away the reality of life to what we always assume to be the ideal world. And people like you that read a lot of books have so much of fairy tales in your minds, and
it's not fairy tales.
You want life to work like that.
Even it's us wanting to do better for the generation that's coming.
Everyone wants to do better. Do you think any sane person wants the worst for this world, apart from what? I don't know how people become.
If you keep perpetuating toxic traits and just ascribing it to that's the way society works, then I don't believe you want better. I believe you're not complacent, but kind of that you've allowed that's how it is, and let us just keep going with this train. But then there are people, it's the same reason why we got, why countries were liberated or got independence. If there were not people to speak out and say, guys, we've had enough, this is not the way things are supposed to be, where would we be? There are people who are born to be complacent, there are people who are born to be leaders, there are people who are born to be change makers, people who are born to die for the cause. So even us, as I'm talking as a feminist and whatnot, but man,
are you going to die for the cause?
It's very hard for me to say I'm going to die for the cause, exactly. Because obviously there are still lots of things that I'm comfortable with in the patriarchy, and it needs me to call myself out constantly,
Yeah.
But then there are those women who have fought for our rights to be educated. There are those people who fought for slavery to be ended, So it's...
Okay.
We shouldn't always say that's the way it is, and...
Let's talk about the curriculum, UNEB, and whatever you are doing.
Whatever I was doing.
What were you doing?
I was doing Cambridge.
Do you think this is a blunt question, but I need like a general answer. Do you think people who do Cambridge are smarter than people who do UNEB?
No.
Do you think people who do UNEB are smarter than people who do Cambridge?
No. That's like me say, that's like you asking, do you think people who do the curriculum in China are smarter than people who do the curriculum
actually, yeah, that's a
South
dumb
Africa.
question. So the question is, do you think UNEB is a better curriculum than Cambridge?
Well, I can't speak for UNEB because...
With how it works in Uganda?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because you've not done UNEB?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I will say...
No, but your friends. You have lots of friends that have done UNEB.
Yeah.
And you can judge from... like how you see your friends that have done UNEB and you guys that have done Cambridge. What would you prefer for your child?
It's interesting because when I first reached uni, I was the only one of my friends. I did uni from Makere.
Okay.
And I was the only one of my friends who actually went to Ugandan university. And obviously all of them kind of look like, what are you staying in Uganda for after? But it was a blessing, and I would not do it any other way. Because up until that point, I think we were very sheltered. And it's the same thing with people from UNEB. We have perspectives of people who go to international schools, people who go to UNEB. And it's just because maybe most times we never actually connect to find out what the other side is like. So I would find that people are shocked that I was in law school. They're like, don't you guys just chill all the time? And you wake up, do ballet. After you do ballet, you go for like Pilates, then swim. Just as long and short of it is they thought we were going to be super dumb and super lazy. That's the truth, And I think that's what they were sold in, that traditional schools or UNEB schools, is that these kids are given so much freedom, they don't actually ever study anything. And us, from our end, because honestly, colonization did a lot to people. But now imagine you're in a school that's teaching you the colonizers' curriculum. Most times you will never even learn about the history of Uganda. Yeah. You'll be very lucky too. Even though it's an option.
Us Vancouver.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same thing with the UNEB curriculum. That's actually really funny. But you guys actually had to, at a time where you learned about Ugandan history, you learned about also the independence fighters and whatnot. Us, I think it was an option in the curriculum, but you could choose to do, let's say, British history or American history. So in as much as you think you're opening your child up to like an international perspective, which you are, you're also denying them the opportunity to be familiar with where they're from. Does that make sense? Mm. So I find that if you're to take your child to an international school, so it's not about the curriculum itself. The curriculums are both good, I would say, especially now that they're trying to do an overhaul of that UNEP curriculum to make it fit into the conditions of today. But you'll find there's also like, I know I'm jumping from place to place, but you'll find there's also a conflict with the UNEP curriculum whereby, I don't think it's a curriculum itself, but it's the schools where children are not even allowed to speak vernacular. So it comes down to, we're being colonized so much that we believe we're supposed to subscribe to a certain type of standard. So that plays into what I was saying of people from international schools, or most kids from international schools would think of people from your neighbors, they're doing the local curriculum, what do they study?
Okay, forget what the people think of each other.
Yeah.
And focus on what's better for your child. What would you choose? Like, besides her perspective on my son who will go to, definitely already started going to UNEP. But yeah, like what will be better? What works? When you do Cambridge, then you go to MOOC. Looks like, first of all, the expense of Cambridge was almost as useless.
No, not at all. Because you see, people assume that when you take your kids to Cambridge school, you're expecting them to go outside countries. So to
forget getting them outside, because it goes back to, what's the point of investing in education?
I learned that the things I have and the talents I have were definitely because of my school. Oh, now this is talking about my hidden talents. But no, I do not think it was a wasted expense at all. At all. Because the experiences I had in that school, on the schools I went to, definitely built me to be the person I am today. And it goes back to us saying the same things, that values that a school gives you, the experiences it opens you up to, the mentalities it gives you is also very important. So it's not about you are taking your child to Cambridge to prepare them to go to, a school abroad. It shouldn't always be the norm. It's what are you, and that's why you need to be very careful which school, generally, UNEP or international, you're taking your child to. What mentalities are they teaching that child? Because the curriculum will be the same all through.
If you got a child tomorrow, what school would you take them to?
I'd probably take them to a Montessori school, which is, I've not done a lot of research on it, but it doesn't teach rote learning. I definitely hate rote learning because it's very useless. I study for a topic today, I forget it tomorrow. What's the point? It teaches children more. So you would have done really good
if you had done UNEB. Well, we're cramming a lot.
No, I hate it. I think I would have actually fallen behind, because one thing about international schools is that in as much as they are not strict, the curriculum is very good, first of all, but if you really want to learn, you're going to learn a lot.
But that's the thing. What do you mean learn a lot? Here is a system that makes you cram. So
you're saying rote learning is good? It works?
It works.
Really?
Yes.
Rote learning, that's
what we do when we're going for interviews, for the jobs we do. Tell them, the first question is usually, tell me about yourself. Then you remember a whole CV of what you wrote or what you did. Sometimes you even lie about it.
That's not good.
That's how the system really actually works.
Authenticity is what comes off in most of those interviews. By the way, most of those interviews are spoken word ones. By the time you get there, they have seen your CV.
Yeah, but they want you to speak. They want you to the basis of the interview is for them to see you for who you are.
Yeah, so why are you cramming and regurgitating?
Because cramming works.
Cramming does not work.
Because we cram to pass exams for a whole curriculum.
What's the
point? That's what we're doing the whole time.
You see, and that's what I'm saying. That's not a good system. Because at the end of the day, you've not learnt anything.
We've not had a president from an international school.
No, that's fine. And I'm not saying that, our policy, that's a topic for another day. But authenticity and learning to think for yourself is what's most important in getting educated.
When you cram, it does not mean you're not thinking for yourself. Cramming helps you to store a lot of information that you can use again. Isn't it what you lawyers do?
Cramming?
That's all you do. How does the law work? Refer to cases from 1887. Bring back those same cases, apply them to current situations, to what's happening in court. Like, this is what they decided for guys before. So, since you're in the same situation, this is what we're going to decide for you.
But it doesn't really work like that, because everyone has the same access to the cases that were passed. Now, what makes a good lawyer is being able to apply a certain fact of cases, even where they seem like they did not apply, but be able to convince the jury or the judge that they did. That's where the mentality comes in. So it's not rote learning. You can read. And me, the way I describe rote learning is if a textbook says this as a definition of, let's say, what is water or what is H2O made of, that kind of thing, and you need to write exactly what's in the textbook, then I've not helped myself at all because I've not applied any critical thinking to that. I could have a different view on what H2O is, and it could be right to someone else, but if a teacher is going to mark based on what is in the textbook, then I've not learned anything because I'm reading just to write an exam, pass, go on. So you ask yourself why we don't have a lot of critical thinkers or people you can sit down with and say, I have never thought about it that way. How many people have you talked to like that and they've blown your mind because of the way they've thought about a certain thing that you've never thought of in that way? Just because you are taught it is like this and that's the way it is. It leaves us to be stagnant in the way that we think. So that's why I don't ascribe to rote learning. That's why I would say I get Montessori schools really teach your child to critically think because they use their hands. I won't talk about it a lot because I don't understand it that much, but the little I do understand of it, I like the way they teach your child right from nursery school. Number one, to trust their instincts, to trust the way their mind works. Because again, another thing I would have an issue with rote learning with is that a lot of kids have learning disabilities. And if a kid has ADHD or dyslexia or what have you, they're going to be seen as silly, stupid. But we've seen people with ADHD, dyslexia, autism, they can be smart as hell. But it's just,
most of the time,
if you put them in a school that stifles them to think a certain way, you're always going to think your child is stupid, that there's something wrong with your child. So put them in an environment where they can grow their skills according to how their mind works. So maybe if there are more UNEB schools like that, I can really be educated on that, but that's the type of school. It's not even about being UNEB or international, but I would want to take my child to a school where they learn how to harness every skill that they have. If they're not good at math, well, maybe they're not meant to be a mathematician. They can be a musician. They can be... You've laughed. No, but Mark, you see, now you're doing really good things on big conversations, ordinary people, but let's not lie, this is not the conventional route to go with. Yeah. Or, if I'm to ask you, what did you want to do straight out the bat, out of high school? What your parents wanted you to do?
My dad wanted to be a priest. Okay,
that is... Brian, a priest to ask. Well, you that Rowdy is like, you need Jesus.
But no. My dad wanted me to be a priest. I think he knew how heavy it is to raise children. So he kept asking me to go be a priest. The priest usually told me of the benefits of how it is like to be a priest. I wanted to be a lawyer, I think, because my friends used to say I used to have a lot of arguments.
Because law?
Yeah, then they thought that's the past. Then I went into school. Got really lucky. My dad exposed me to laptops at when I was in P3. Mm-hmm. Fell in love with computers. Then I ended up doing computer science. I don't have any regrets. But right now I'm creating content and doing some other things. Well, because again, life works differently. Yeah, from the reality of it to what you imagine. Oh,
your ideal. It works differently from the ideal.
Did you want to be a lawyer?
Yeah. Only because I like to know a lot of stuff, and it's the only course that would let me know a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. Because if you think about it, there are laws on everything. Yeah? Right now, there are laws on what we're doing right now, creating content. So to study about creating content, or to know about creating content, or to understand those laws, I need to understand copyright law. Yeah. And to understand copyright law, I need to understand music, or what makes a song, or what makes content. I don't know if you get what I mean. So for every law, you need to kind of understand its genesis. And that's what kind of lets you have a lot of knowledge about small different topics, a bunch of them, no matter how little it is, but over a short period of time.
But if I'm dedicated to YouTube in this current day and age, I can get the information, right?
You can, that's the beauty about YouTube, really. Man, shout out to those Indian dudes who taught us jurisprudence and accounting. Exactly. Yeah, but what I mean is, I liked law because it makes you kind of... First of all, can I ask you, what do you think the law is?
That's a very interesting question.
What makes the law the law?
The law is government, that's what I think. and I think the law is unjust. First of all, it shouldn't be there. Like it's only there to protect. Well, in a fair world, we don't need the law.
Really? People would
we are
argue,
only meant to believe that we need.
People would argue that the Bible is a law, or religion is also law.
Yeah, that's why I told you that the conversation God was very fundamental. It's what we needed to even start with, because I do not know if I really believe in the Bible.
So you don't believe there should be rules on how people should act, or what they should do, or what they shouldn't do? Even the most fundamental.
Yes, because kill, I believe rules.
Do not steal. Do not base all the 10 commandments. But like those very fundamental.
Just words, people are stealing, people are killing.
Yeah, but should they be allowed to do those things?
They probably wouldn't be doing those things. You know that the whole point of curiosity, like don't sell that to persons under 18, and it's mostly 18 and below that really buy the alcohol, because don't do drugs, just to tell people to do drugs indirectly. And that's how the human brain really works. Once you curtail, it's just like a dog. My dog wants, if you don't want it to come into this house,
it will.
Like if you chase it, if you can always show it that, hey, don't be in the house, then it will show you that it's fighting to get in, so it will get in. But if you let it be, it will find its peace, it go to its house. It's how we are wired to function. So when there are laws...
So let me ask you. You don't believe there should be law, but today if someone takes your content from Big Conversations, Ordinary People, or takes that logo up there and posts it on their own YouTube, starts their own YouTube doing exactly what you do, and you have no remedy because there's no law.
The law is needed. It can work. Like, I need to be protected, But when you ask what the law is, I feel like the genesis of it all is where the trouble begins from. Like, building, like people who decided, like, let's design some laws. Let there be laws are the problem.
Those are the guys who are the problem. I think it just depends.
What does the law mean to you? What is the law?
You see, in law school, we study this topic called jurisprudence, and I think it was one of my favorite subjects, because up until that point, I hadn't questioned why I was even studying law, what the law is, as you've said. So there are people who believe the law comes naturally to us, or what comes to be the law comes naturally to us. They are called natural law theorists. They believe the law comes from God. Those things that, yes, you can think it comes from the Bible of the 10 Commandments, but there are also things in you, Mark, that you know are wrong. Not because someone has told you they're wrong, but because
you feel bad about them somehow. Yes.
So it comes naturally to you.
I'm those people.
There are laws that are made off of that, mostly criminal law. Yeah. Then there are laws that are made to structure the way society works. So those can be, I've forgotten what it was called, but I'm forgetting the word. Guys, correct me in the comments. But the laws that are made by governments of this needs to be the way it is because we say so.
Yeah.
Positive.
That's what I have a problem with.
And such laws most times are very repressive. Suppressive, repressive, whatever it's called. Because if today they say women are not allowed to go on the street to do this, that's what needs to happen. Or men, now you're supposed to go out and
don't
walk.
Smoke marijuana.
Yes. Yeah. So such laws are the way they are because it's because of how government has said it, And you'll find most of those laws are, they have a connotation of commercial interests behind them. The reason why marijuana is not allowed to be smoked is because we know that it's a herb that's in a lot of medicines. And if it becomes available to the vast majority of people, they wouldn't be buying big pharma.
Okay.
So you'd find that actually most of those laws, that's where they come from. Government has said it. Doesn't make a lot of sense. You shouldn't put marijuana at the same stage as at the same level as you put cocaine, but you do. And you're not allowed to smoke it because of that's why it is. Then there's also people who believe that the law comes from society. The way society is shall dictate how laws are. A very good example is the way abortion laws have become phased out in some countries. Yet, abortion laws ideally are rooted in natural law theory of it's wrong to kill. No matter how small this child is, no matter if they're a little peanut, it's wrong to kill someone else, another human being. But now society is saying women should have more rights over their bodies, more autonomy.
Women should kill more.
But they'll cancel you.
That's what that law means, actually.
Not ideally. It's just having more autonomy over yourself. And also there are other reasons people have abortions. We cannot deny the fact that they're, it's really varying. Yeah. But now something like societal law theorists believe that the law should reflect what society has decided is best for itself. Whether that is being more progressive or regressive. Yeah. So, like the Computer Misuse Act, some people will argue that it's very much needed in a society that is digital, where people can go online and say whatever they want to and have no consequences.
No, but
others will say you're trying to gag
the
press, you're trying to gag people. Freedom of speech is being repressed. Things like that,
But it's not about what people are saying. It's about what, first of all, it's already been there. Yeah, through the data protection law, I think, something like that. Like most of the things in it have already been the law. They have just adjusted it to favor, to really just control, I think, the narrative online on social media on what you should and shouldn't say. Because a lot of that has been contributing to a lot of success, providing, again, when you look at how Donald Trump became president, a lot of that was because of how his team manipulated internet data. So you realize that whenever Twitter or searches about Hillary Clinton were, at least whenever you'd search a negative thing about Hillary Clinton, a positive thing about Donald Trump would show up. They manipulated it to that level. So, but it was because of the bots Trump's side could build and change Google data. This is some book I read. It's Big Data, Small Data by, I think, Colin Kapman. Something like that. So I feel like that Computer Misuse Act also it shouldn't exist, but then I do not so much about the law and why some people have power to actually decide for us, even if people keep saying government is by the people, for the people, voted into by the people. The way things are done here makes you not trust a thing, because I was still not consulted. As by either my MP about how I feel about it before it passed into law. All those things that I feel like they should happen, none of that happened. Then I don't think it can actually be enforceable. Again, there is so much. I can have a banner account right now. I'm going to be like off Twitter for a month. But I'll still see things probably through a business account or through a banner account. And there's no traces to that. I am tech savvy enough to make sure that you cannot trace me onto that. So I still think it's a waste of time, waste of money, but maybe you can help us understand.
I would say I do not have a concrete opinion on it, but I definitely do get where you're coming from. And let me play devil's advocate from your end as well, the way you also do it. Do we deny that social media has become, it's good, but it's also a very big problem in terms of spreading false news, in terms of the fact that
what do you understand by freedom of speech?
That people can say what they want to, yes, but when it comes to it being detrimental to others, then it's a problem. And what I'm saying, I'm not denying what you've said. But I'm trying to get the fact that they are trying to control
what can be said,
how people use these communications, because we cannot deny the fact that something like false news can spread like wildfire and cause a very big we just saw it with COVID-19. Anyone would come on and say, hey guys, the first person with COVID has come on, then even release his identity. We never know what's going to happen to that person. But of course, when we think about it in the context of Uganda, then you know that there are certain interests at stake here, and that's the reason that they are putting it in play. But what I'm saying is that there's a bigger question as to the ethics of using social media and the ethics of using digital media generally. How should it be regulated? It may not be the way that the Ugandan government has gone
how do you feel it should be regulated?
You see, that's a conversation that's being had around the world right now. We definitely know something like cyber stalking should be criminalized. Releasing revenge porn should be criminalized. Take, nudes of children or just generally information about children. Such things should not be allowed, but within confines. Now, for example, the Computer Misuse Act generally blanketly states that you're not allowed to circulate information about children. More or less, it's what it says. Again, as you said, something similar is under the Data Protection and Privacy Act.
Yeah.
But what it does in this case, under the Computer Misuse Act, is that
What's the difference between an act and a law?
An act is a law.
Okay. Why did you say act and not law this time?
Okay, maybe that was just...
Choice of words. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Data Protection...
Wait, whenever any people use that, it means the same, right?
Yeah, okay, laws vary. You can have... subsidiary laws, then you can have regulations, you can have acts, you can have the constitution. So the constitution is like a chopinako, it's a top law. Yeah, but normally when people say law, they mean something that has been passed by or enacted by the government, or by the parliament rather. Yeah, so what I was saying about children is that the issue with these laws is that they become very difficult to enforce, number one, as you say. But even when you go to court to prove them, it also becomes a bit of an issue, because if I circulate information about a child without the consent of a parent, it may have been for a good reason. This child, maybe the parent is beating them up. We've seen a lot of those videos circulating. Is it to say that now the exception is going to be made in court to say that, oh, okay, she was just circulating it to show this and that? And so I believe most times...
Is that right to circulate that video?
And that's the thing, like, am I circulating it out of me wanting to say, oh, this was a very bad thing, guys, see what happened? Or am I circulating it out of...
Spite, like,
spite, yeah. So I think what needs to happen is maybe blurring the child's face, because that happens a lot. But also, generally, what I was saying about the law being very clear on the instances under which someone is held criminally liable. Because criminal liability is much more serious than civil liability. Criminal liability carries with it penalties, fines, going to jail, being convicted. And so when you have something like in the Computer Misuse Act, which says it's a crime, and you've not told us what are the ingredients other than it should be without the consent of the parent, that becomes an issue. And so I think just having very clear laws on what are the ingredients to this, because that also guides the courts, because now you'll find that law is definitely going to be challenged in courts of law. It already is being challenged in courts of law, and not being because of a provision like that. It's being challenged because of the provisions of false information, hate speech, and all these other things that were passed. But going back to my point of, it's important for us to think about how we regulate social media or the use of digital platforms without stifling freedom of speech, which is a very hard balance to strike.
It's impossible, in my opinion. I think we first of all, when you look at what the platforms want and how they work.
Why is that your ringtone?
I like Lil Wayne, a best rapper, but also that's a very good song. So when you look at one, they say what's on your mind. The mind is a very interesting place.
Yeah.
Part of the other bit of this conversation is we're going to look into your mind space. Where's your mind at? And then you got there. So the mind is a very big place for everyone, and it's very delicate, very interesting, very complicated. Yeah, how we think of life, the stories that interest us the most, the things we want to be attached to, and the platforms realize this and they made money off it. This is how they work. So when you come now to regulate that, to put rules on what I should think.
It's not putting rules on what you think.
It's what you're putting rules on, trust me. Because you see what I'm putting on social media.
All that nonsense that you think should be online. Because I may be there and I say,
I want my nonsense.
No, but you see what I'm saying.
It's not affecting. Like if I'm not like causing harm and I'm not maybe, okay. Again, it's a catch.
There's a reason why you have, when you go on your Instagram and you go under terms and conditions, or even like when you go to report something on Instagram, It brings a long list of things, a lot of which is actually in the Computer Misuse Act right now. It's false news, misinformation, hate speech, this is about pornography, something along those lines. Because there should be regulations in place to regulate circulation of certain content, which may be harmful to a certain group of people, or harmful to children, or harmful to whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But as a community, we do need to come up with regulation around the use of digital platforms. The question is just how. So now this is just kind of duplication of, you guys are now making it a law, but most platforms already have these rules in place. They shall take down something because it is spreading false news.
Oh, well, apart from maybe false news, because news really affects people. But I'm saying my right to call someone an idiot, if I feel they're being an idiot, should not be taken away from me. Because a lot of what we pick from the world and how we're influenced is emotion. Yeah? It's how we feel. We operate so much on our emotions.
But that very closely ties on cyberbullying. If I'm just going to go and be like, this chick is fat, this chick is ugly, and it's because of what I think it, so should I be allowed to say it on public platforms?
Do you think there's a problem with being offended?
Do you think there's a problem with being offended?
I think all this, Should there be a problem? Do you have a problem with, do you stop eating food when you're offended?
It's not about there being a problem with being offended. It's just wrong for you to go out of your way to offend someone.
Because you feel like it's wrong.
It is wrong. It is wrong.
Someone says something about, let's say, my tribe. I don't even have to maybe reply to them directly. And I give, I should have, let's say, first of all, when you're a public figure, when you're a civil servant, yeah, you're operating with my money as a taxpayer. And money is very emotional because it's hard to make. So when you are operating with my money and I feel like you're not doing right by my money,
you should be allowed to say it.
I should be allowed to express my opinions, because you're also doing some wrong things already. You're misusing my money.
Okay. So
the least I can do is to be angry enough, because in the world people get angry, and that's the reality of things.
So should we be allowed to say just anything because of our anger? Should we also limit it to this is only limited to public
officials? Do you have
officials?
A problem with the tweets the good general sends out?
I don't really pay attention to that.
Okay. I feel like a big chunk of people have a problem with his tweets because we're being made to believe there's a problem with freely expressing yourself. There are all these constructs on family, I don't know how you feel about married men posting a picture of a woman and saying they're beautiful, but we see beautiful women every day in the bar. Shouldn't be a problem. We are just made to believe that everything should be wrong even when it shouldn't. This is how Trump got off Twitter, by the way.
Which he should have. He was tweeting a lot of nonsense. Come on. No, but that's like to say, Mark, it's like to say anything should go on social media. Just don't be offended. Sorry if it's offensive. Don't be offended. So what shouldn't go? What shouldn't go is the things that have been set out. I shouldn't be allowed to post pornography on a site that ideally has children. Should I be allowed to? Just because it's what I feel like doing?
But when it comes to the business side of it,
should I be allowed to go out and call someone all types of vulgarities just because it's what I feel like?
Do you believe there's such a thing
Yet most times I won't even be able to say that stuff to your face because, being behind a screen makes me anonymous. So it makes me have more vim to say it. So I would say, what do we owe each other as a society? Don't we owe each other at least respect?
Yes.
At the bare minimum,
yes,
we owe each other
respect.
And there are platforms where you can call out your government officials for stealing money and whatnot in a respectful
manner. How do I
manner.
call them?
That's the truth.
That's the thing. A guy steals 400 billion. And that is not disrespectful enough. 400 billion that was supposed to, and you think calling them an idiot is what's disrespectful? No, that I don't agree at all. No.
But there are platforms to hold them accountable. But you see, the thing with social media, which I understand, most times it feels like you're taking your power back.
Look at it in a perspective of,
but in reality,
feminism, men are trash. Yeah, it really works. Like, men at some point felt like that. Like, you'd wake up in the morning, there's a season, and see a story about what some man did, then see it again tomorrow and see the hashtag, and you are meant to believe that men are trash. And that's whether good or bad, because you do not want your son to grow up, how can I say, detesting themselves. It's wrong for my son to grow up thinking that we're already bad. Like, it's faster for them to do the bad, since they're meant to believe they're already bad. So that was offensive to men, by the way, but it worked. That type of activism worked. Yeah. So you see how you only want things to work when they are in your favor.
No. You see, I also didn't agree with the whole men are trash. Because I feel like it pushed a message, yes, but as you said, it also had the opposite reaction. A lot of men were hurt, not because they had ideally done these things, but because they were being treated as, like, women actually started to believe these things and treating men a certain way and spitting this mantra. But I do believe that you need to think about the genesis of that hashtag. Up till now, Mark, if something happened to me, let's say, God forbid, I got sexually assaulted somewhere in a bar and whatnot, a lot of times I'll be blamed for it or not even believed. So it's also a bit about, as I said, taking your power back. The message may be very radical, but as you said, it worked for people to actually, like, a message kept,
Yeah.
repeating.
Like, you'd think about it like, maybe.
So it's not it wasn't necessarily the best way, but it got the message across.
Is there, like, a best way to achieve equality?
I don't think there is one way.
Is it even important?
Is it important
for us to achieve equality?
I'm not going to answer that, because
you
I said no.
Yeah, but
is it important? We have
to
suffered
fight
back.
To fight.
I cannot
no.
I cannot
explain
like how important
equality
it is.
Important because equality is important, but to fight for it.
If they had to once fight for you to be seen the same as a white man, was that important? If you have the same qualifications where they choose him over the color of his skin, is that important? Yeah.
Maybe some of us have not experienced some things.
You see, and that's why it's very hard for most African men to understand the concepts of feminism. We just want to be kawa with you guys. Taken on the same level. Not that we want to be men. I wouldn't ever want to be a man. I enjoy being a woman. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because being a woman is so much fun.
Yes, it is. That's why I would just say that.
Your chances to winning in life
really
are drastically multiplied by like 4. Of course, it also every good thing comes with its cons, I think, because again, with being a woman is tricky. Your life can go into COVID in a snap.
Yeah,
can make you pregnant if you're not yet ready for it, and that can set you back like 100 years. But that's like the only thing that can set you back. What
not being a woman in itself.
Like
anyway,
what?
let us leave that comment. I feel like we have talked about it
a lot,
and we're just going in circles. So it's Kawa.
Let's go to your work. You being an advocate, junior, an executive assistant. What does that even mean? People like titles.
Executive assistant.
Looks like a title someone from an international school.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Executive assistant.
Well, I'll say I first went into my place of clerkship. Because, after LDC, or during LDC, you have to do clerkship. And I happened to get the place I really wanted. I went to work for a law firm that does tech and IP, because that's what I want to practice. And luckily, I got KTA, because that's where I actually was aiming to work at.
So you did your clerkship at KTA?
Yeah. And ideally, I also wanted to work in the TMT and IP practice group, which is Technology, Media, Telecommunications, and Intellectual Property. So it's a practice group that deals directly with that kind of work. and also the clientele that they had was impressive to me. At first I worked like in internship in LLB, which is at law school, at MOOC. I worked with a law firm and I did not like my experience. I found it boring. I found the hours. So from then, I think it was a law firm I really wanted to work for. But I hated my experience. I noticed I don't want to go into litigation. I don't want to go into just sitting at a desk and numbingly typing out contracts or whatnot. I needed something that I could feel like I'm touching the law, but without having to go to court, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And something that was relevant in this day and age and interesting to me. And that was intellectual property, technology, media, of course, entertainment law. So that's why I actually applied to go work at KTA, because ideally that's what that practice group does. And that's what the firm is known for. So I got to work close with my boss. I think you've met him. My boss now, who is Kenneth Muhangi. And while I was there, it just so happened there was an opening for a personal assistant for him. And that was not an ideal, the ideal for a person who's coming out of LDC. Because ideally you want to practice law, you want to be that lawyer. You want to be the one who's doing the work itself. But I saw that there was an opportunity for me to get even more than I had anticipated I would get. Working with the person who actually runs the practice group, who came up with a practice group in the first place and has been one of the spearheads of this practice in Uganda.
Yeah.
So I could not...
Ken is a top dog, yeah?
Right? I hope he doesn't see this. He's going to feel quite...
No, it's a top dog. Me personally, I tell him whenever I see him. But also because I look at him as one of my virtual mentors.
Aww.
By just seeing his progress with life and where he wants to be, the things he says, where his mind is at.
Yeah, he's a very intelligent man and he's a visionary.
So, exactly. So, yeah, that's why, one, I wanted to understand him from like you who works
under him,
your perspective of him. From mine's about fed up with the books and whatnot, and being this self-righteous person. But yes, that's like perspective.
Yeah.
But now that you speak of him like that, it does make sense.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an opportunity not only to work close to him, but also to be exposed to the things that he has worked with, and also to understand maybe the thinking, his way of thinking, but also the rest of the practice group. Because I won't only limit it to Ken.
Yeah.
We have a very talented practice group at KTA. We have Bonita, who is also a visionary in her own right. So I wanted to be close or work close to those people. And in that moment, there was no opening for a junior associate in the TMT practice group.
Yeah.
So I saw, why not just take the PA job? It's going to give me all the opportunities I want to. It may not be as fancy of a job title as junior associate or,
Wait, is junior associate fancy? What does a junior associate do? Oh, you'll still get to that.
Yeah. So it may not be as fancy as a junior associate, because ideally that's a lawyer. So you have junior associate, senior associate, partner. So that's how the ranks go.
Wait, junior associate, senior?
No, junior associate, senior associate, partner, then partner.
And managing partner?
Oh, managing partner is like at the level of partner, but you just so happen to be
the one running
things at the firm.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so that's how I ended up being a PA, but we found that PA did not really fit with, I think executive assistant sounded a bit better. And that's why we chose to go with executive assistant, because personal assistant sounds like, really this person's BITCH in a way. At least that's how I saw it. So, yeah. Eventually, that's how it came to be, executive assistant. But when I graduated LDC, I was bumped up to also being a junior associate. So I hold 2 roles. Yeah.
LDC.
LDC, indeed.
What do you have to say about LDC? Is it fair? I don't want to have an opinion. And I don't want my opinion to be entirely based off what I've read online. But I've read quite a number of think pieces. I have a conversation slated with PK. He works at which farm? This farm at Bajene. I don't remember. I don't know.
You're going to talk about LDC?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about LDC, but that was in the time with Rusho as well. Rusho didn't make it. He couldn't ride his bicycle throughout lockdown because that's when we were supposed to have the conversation. But it was because of the results and how people felt and how constantly young lawyers have felt like it's such a scam to them, that they're cheated. How do you feel now that you passed LDC? How do you feel about it, like, generally? This is a podcast, though. Chances are high no one is going to listen to it. But since
you said an interview, you want to say this? No. I would start by saying, obviously, caveat, this is my opinion. LDC is not hard. LDC, and I
clearly, because you passed it.
No. I'll say it again, and a lot of people will tell you, LDC is not hard. It's just the intensity of LDC. It is so much work in such a short time that the normal human being would lose their damn mind.
So before you disrespect us all.
No, I'm also saying even us, we lost our minds. Do not think that.
The thing about you lawyers, I don't know if social media just amplifying. You're always complaining. It's maybe about your pay.
We are paid to complain. Now you want us to not complain in real life.
Now that you mention it. Okay, but let's go back to it.
LDC is not hard. Ideally, what LDC is doing, it's called.
But do you feel like it's a necessary institution?
Absolutely. LDC in itself is extremely necessary for practice because it's a diploma in legal practice. At law school, what you're learning is a theory. You're going to learn a bunch of things over 4 years, but it's only just theory. You're learning what case, what was decided, and of course in exams you'll apply that law to the facts. But what LDC gives you is how the law is practiced. What are you supposed to do in court? How do you reason in a case? How do you actually apply the facts to the law? But the problem with LDC is that it's just 9 months, and in those 9 months you need to squeeze everything that you did in 4 years within just 1 week normally, and what we call a workshop. And that means you have to have already remembered all the knowledge you had in law school, but also there are these other extra things that you need to learn because you now need to connect that theory to the practical. So that's why I'm saying it's not hard, especially for someone who is ideally a good student. That means you read your books, you write your notes, you come to class, you ask teachers questions.
You do your part.
Yeah. But it's just the amount of work is absolutely absurd because it's a lot of... You can imagine your ideal routine at LDC would be you have a class today, what we call a workshop, okay, with the PA and the professional assistant, anyway, they're called PA, I think they're called professional assistants, where you sit down and you kind of you present to them what you believe the course of action in a certain, we call them workshops, was. So like, let's say it's a case, how that case should be addressed, the facts, the documents you're supposed to draft, which you're supposed to handwrite them. But before you came for this class, you should have handwritten every single thing that you are talking about in class. And in the class, you're also writing to correct, because you could have written wrong things, by the way. So if you wrote wrong things for the workshop, you have to go back and rewrite. Then you go back, you write notes for the next class, which is on Wednesday. But in between Wednesday and Tuesday and Monday, you have other book classes for like what we call category B subjects. So that's like tribal advocacy, professional conduct. We even do accounting and tax, which kills us who don't know math, Bambi.
I feel like tax though should be included
Yeah, we do a bit of tax.
Yeah.
So your week is just full of doing tests and classes and writing notes, and then the next week it's a whole other subject with all different things, bulky as hell, and that's the routine you got on again. Okay,
but my impression though is even the people that have felt sorry, by the way, we're going to install AC very soon.
Man.
You should open this curtain. So the other thing is, what I got from the conversations online were like, even the people that have done that have still been cheated.
So I was going to come to, even though you're a very smart person, you can fail LDC. And I think it's something more people okay, you get prepared for it and it's scary because no one wants to repeat LDC. But again, the sheer amount of work that you need to do. Also, the way that it's taught most times, you can find a professional assistant tells you one thing in one class, and then another tells you another. Then another has another opinion, just like how the law is. So you, when you come to address it in a paper, you could be right in the way that you think it was supposed to be addressed, but to the person who is marking it's wrong. So there's also that lack of knowing what how subjective it is, as opposed to being objective. I think that's also an issue, because you can get out of a paper and someone says, I wrote the exact same things as Mark, but Mark passed and I failed. So that also becomes a problem, because now you don't know, is it the person that marked Mark that marked him differently, or is it me who misfired?
So when it comes to my friends who are engineers, what their issues are, what they learn is not applicable here.
In Uganda?
Yeah. Like, you can't learn how to construct airports because there are no airports to construct. But still, you lawyers come out to complain more than that. So, besides, okay, interpretation, and you feel it's genuine. The system is working well. Guys who are passing are supposed to pass.
Again, I would not be, because I have friends who really read as much as I did, and they failed. I have people who read less than I did, and they passed. So I cannot make an opinion on it, because I do not know what happens in the marking system. I don't, but I do know that a lot of more people passed this year than they did last year.
So what's your vision with your understanding of the law? What impact do you want to make?
Me?
The world, yeah. Yours. Janice.
I don't even know if I'm going to stay in the law that long, but I definitely see myself angling towards creation of the law, or creation of things that affect the law. That is policy. And that was the whole point of the symposium, for example.
Yeah.
Sitting down with people who make the laws, and sitting down with the people who should ideally affect the laws or policies, and asking them to have a meeting of their minds and understand how one policy affects this, and why it's very important for us to have dialogue. So
why is it important if we're not consulted?
Exactly. So why aren't you consulted? Yeah. What is meaningful consultation? Number one, we can start there.
No, it's not about the importance of consultation. It's what's the importance of the dialogue with the policymakers? Does your contribution really matter when they listen to you?
It should.
Do they affect it?
But you see, I think the issue most times is not that they do not want to listen, but just that they don't have the opportunity
just
to
put
do
it closer
so.
to you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They don't have the opportunity to do so in a way that's effective. So you'll find most of the ways that they consult is by sending out a release or like a brief on, guys, we're planning to pass this and this law. We're having a consultative meeting at this hotel. Then they invite certain people, or sometimes they even put it in the press. So it depends on who has the luck of landing on that brief and who has the luck of actually making it to those consultative meetings. So you see where the issue is there. If I'm making a law on borders and I'm only reaching out to border associations, there may be this group of border riders in Kalere who have not gotten that information at all, who by some unfair stroke of luck.
What do you think about those conversations being...
I think they're important. Definitely more people now talk about mental health than before. But at the same time, it's now become like a trend to not be... Anyway, that will be for another day.
No. Okay, let's just go back to... What do you mean it's a trend? This okay.
You see,
now
our generation,
Our
generation, Ranang. I agree there's a lot to be depressed about. There's a lot to be sad about. But we have such victim mentality. There are people with legitimate
mental health and I'm going to take
issues.
you back to the women conversation just because you bring that up. Don't you feel like a lot of the activism in feminism is hidden into victim mentality?
Some of it, yeah. Some of it, yes. But it's, you see now this has been proven to actually be a thing of women are oppressed. But with something like mental health, I think we need to just be very careful about the language used around it. it's very important. And by the way, I'm an advocate for mental health, ensuring
Have you dealt
that people
with any mental health illnesses?
No, I would not say. Of course, everyone has a bouts of depression. Everyone has a bouts of anxiety. I'm a very anxious person. A lot of people are sad and they mistake that for.
Yes,
and that's my problem. We have begun to say things are a certain way when they are not. I am depressed when it's not clinical depression. I don't remember.
Tell me about yourself. You, Celine. Let's go out from the law, from the feminism. Who are you? What motivates you? What drives you? What do you do? Do you meditate? How do you get through life? Do you smoke a lot of weed and get high?
Well, and what is weed? I would say I'm still finding myself. So that's why it's a very difficult question to ask. Many people have concrete answers to this. I am this. I have motivations in this. But I believe I change every time being. No, you have to cut that out. I keep discovering myself, is what I would say. Like up until maybe last year, I may not be like, I liked maybe self-help books, but now I do, because I like, finding things out like that. Up until recently, I did not like listening to things of science fiction. They did not interest me at all, but now I find myself reading more about the Big Bang Theory and, string theory.
You should have started with the Big Bang. Okay. Okay, now. This is why I should have let you finish the tell me about yourself in the beginning.
I know, because I at the heart of it, I would say I'm a very curious person. I'm always seeking out knowledge. I have an insatiable thirst for knowledge. And, obviously, I believe you never stop learning. Yeah. And that's one of the things that gives you so much anxiety. Even as an adult, you never know everything about everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, there's always so much to know, and there's always so much you're ignorant about, which is it's an unsettling feeling.
Do you ever get scared of being ignorant about some stuff?
It's a worry of mine, because I can be in a conversation and I'm like, why don't I know about this? But at the same time, I've learned to kind of have what my mentor has taught me to be learner's mind, or beginner's mind. Kenneth.
Oh, dope.
You cannot know everything, but with everything, approach it like you're just learning it from scratch. So I think that has taken away from the fear of not knowing something. To know that if I apply myself, eventually I'll know about this thing. I'll have enough knowledge on it, and it's exciting to learn about new things. So yeah, I would say at the core of it, I'm that. I believe myself to be open-minded.
How open-minded?
Is there a limit? Is there a measure?
Okay. Adventurous?
Oh, God. You see, I'm also lazy at the same time. So these things of mine are, we're going quad biking, or going bungee jumping. I'd rather be somewhere at the spa, drinking a mimosa. Sup life, girl. So, yeah. I don't have
What legacy are you trying to leave behind?
Ooh. Those are tough questions. A legacy.
Have you ever imagined one?
You see,
but actually, since you say, do you have purpose already? Do you feel like you've found your purpose?
No. And you see, that's a very scary feeling coming out of school, and because up until that point, you have one thing you're driving for, is to graduate. Then you graduate school, and you are left in this state of abeyance. Just I don't know what I want to do. What's next? Should I go for master? Should I do this? Should I be a human rights defender? What do I even truly believe in? What are my core values? And that's why I find it so important to be close to God, because He's the one constant that does not ever change. And I believe that His plan for everyone, even yourself included, who has doubts, is incredible. And you can believe that to be true. Yeah. So I think finding that pillar in the confusion. So to answer your question, no, I don't know if I have a purpose yet. I don't know what my purpose is exactly, but I know it's something great. I know it's something that's going to be impactful, that is going to leave behind, hopefully, a legacy and my name.
What are you doing to realize your purpose? Do you feel like you have to do something about it?
Yes, I definitely believe if you stay hopeless and about also what your purpose is. You'll never find it.
Are you like a career person? Are you looking at becoming the Chief Justice?
Please, I don't want to work for the judiciary. I'm looking more on, again, impacting change through the law. Which, okay, also people in the judiciary do. But being at that driving wheel. I feel like
only them do it actually, right?
No, because who makes all of our laws?
Who passes them?
Parliament, but they don't pass them out of ignorance. Those laws are very detailed. And actually every law that is passed has a history behind it and the reason why it was passed and why it's been put in place, why it's needed. So putting laws like that in place that are actually going to help Uganda, which, sounds like, oh, I want to help people and change people's lives, but it can happen. It is something that's achievable if you put your mind to it.
Like help in terms of what? What are you looking at? What problems? Are you realizing as you grow up that this needs to change? Because I'll tell you, the problems I would want you to help me fix are arresting young people for marijuana smoking. I feel like we should
decriminalize weed.
It's a big conversation.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people's lives are taken away just for that here. Like a big chunk are taken in one night and arrested for good. And I've seen this.
Like the histories of those laws, it's so funny. You see, most of the laws that we have, we just adopted from Britain without even knowing why.
And now those guys are actually really minimizing.
Yeah, they remove them and us we stay like, weed is bad. Why? Because it's bad. Have you seen how people are when they're on weed? That kind of thing. Yeah, but it's... Yeah, you see now... thinking about why certain laws are there and removing the ones that we no longer need and putting the ones in place that we do need. I've not yet known how I'll go about that. I know it's not going to be me alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely something along those lines.
And legacy, as we conclude?
Legacy?
Still helping people. An impact, right?
I do not know. And I think it takes a lot to say I don't know. I could have made up some shit and say... I want my legacy to be this and that, but I think as a lot of young people who are coming out of school, who are not very sure as to what their path is, I'll say with confidence, I don't know what my legacy is, but I am going to have a damn fun finding it out. Because that's the point of life, just wading your way through until you land on something that you feel is your legacy.
Do you believe in
afterlife? And you never even know if you have a legacy. Do I believe in afterlife?
That's the last question, I promise. You're done.
I mean, I have to. I lost my mother recently.
There's life after death. Oh, sorry about your mom.
I have to.
When you say recently, how?
Last year.
Okay.
So yeah, it was pretty recent. But I would say I know it is the reason being that I know people who pass away don't just disappear into oblivion,
So you feel like she's somewhere up there watching over you?
It doesn't even have to be up there.
I lost my mom when I was 4 years.
That's young. That's really young. I don't even think you remember. Do you remember her face?
So everything I know about her was told to me.
Yeah.
That's how bad it is. But I never feel like... I feel like she's resting. I know. I don't know, really. But I feel like when I want to think about her to bask into life and being tough on me, I think about her, I use her as a consolation that, maybe if you're here, but I know it's just a whole lie. Like she has never been part of my life.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like she exists. Like, I don't feel like if I die, I'll meet her.
Yeah. I get that.
Like there's an end. Like when we die, that's it.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you believe there's a difference between mark the body and mark the consciousness? Because if you believe that, then I don't think you can think that you just end. Like, as you think, everything that you do, your essence, that's where it ends? That's all?
You don't believe that?
No, definitely not. This can't just all disappear. You can't just all disappear. Your body can, surely. It's the same reason we can lose limbs and still function. But there is something that makes you you. Is it your physical body? Or there's a difference between your physical body and what makes Mark?
The mark has to operate in the physical body.
Not necessarily. In your dreams, you're not in your physical body.
I never see myself in the dreams, but
exactly. It's your essence, or whatever spiritual thing you believe in. That's what's playing in your dreams. Ideally, okay, that's how I think about it at least.
Do you dream every day?
Not every day.
Do you know I lost track of my dreams? Like they reach a time where now they don't come.
Damn.
Yeah, but I know some reason as to why.
Like you just sleep and it's black.
Yes.
Every night.
Yes.
Every day.
Yes.
You're in, you're out.
Yes.
Oh Lord.
But a big chunk of that maybe comes from the marijuana.
Ah.
Yeah. So because
But even marijuana is a bit spiritual.
Yeah, some bit of it. Like there's when it will help me get into my mind very well. Mm-hmm. But I don't remember the dream. And there's when I used to remember the dreams. Like I would wake up and know that. But now, no. I know that I dreamt about something.
But you can't remember what it was. Maybe it's just a bit of weak memory. That's also a thing.
Yeah.
Because if you're very intent on knowing what you dreamt about, it can't happen. As soon as you wake up, you can write. Which I think is teetering on some spiritual... you don't know what you may jump upon. So.
All right. Yeah. Again, very interesting. Now that I learn about your mom, I can't not just ask. What does her going away mean? What has it done to you? Do you feel like there's a whole of you missing? How was she a part of you? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's fine. You see, there are people who don't like talking about those things, but then there are others who it's very therapeutic. And I have found that when someone has gone through a similar experience, it's very helpful to hear about it from someone else's perspective as well. So I will say that I was extremely close to my mom. I'm talking,
buddies.
Hey!
Friends.
Oh, but I would wake up in the morning just to hang out with her. I say, Mom, I'm following you everywhere you go today. And that was just how we were, our plot. I believe she knew everything about me and she knew me the best in this world. As most moms.
She knew everyone you're dating.
Yes, when I used to tell her, she would kind of, she would tell, because that's how ideally when you're close. Right? Yeah. And
she has been where you have been.
Right, and now you're trying to lie to her, like, I'm going for a sleepover. Where are you going? Staying here. Yeah, so I would say that, and it was a thing with all my siblings, we're all equally close to my mom. So losing her was very, very sudden, extremely sudden, because she died from something that was not foreseeable. But I would say it's one of the things that has also shown me who I am. As human beings, we're very resilient. We're stronger than we think. Because ideally, something you thought would break you, it doesn't. It doesn't. And it's very shocking because in any world, if you had told me you will lose your mom at the age of 24, stuck in the middle of LDC, right before you go for papers, I would say, how would I even pass? It's impossible. I think I would kill myself too because that's how much she meant to me. But somehow God prepares you for these things and God gives you sustenance. Yeah, He gives you provision and He provides for everything you need in that time. And one thing I learned is friends and family are the most important thing. And so when you are complaining about, your dad calling you to ask for 100K and yes, you're your last 100K and you feel like the responsibilities, the amount of guilt you'll feel when he dies or when your mother dies and you know that 100K could have helped them in that moment.
Because at the end of the day, you're going to go and spend it.
Exactly. Like materialistic things normally get in the way of family and friends. Yet these are the things that matter at the end of the day because I would never ever have gotten through that extremely tough time without family and friends, the ones that God put around me. So it taught me that I was stronger than I thought. It taught me the power of love. Because love is the most important thing at the end of the day too. Compassion, community.
Have you experienced love?
Yeah, I experienced love with her.
Yeah,
definitely.
With your mom, definitely. The most. Besides your mom. Yes,
I do believe I love friends. I love the people I've been with. You want me to be giving you details, didn't me? You're trying to catch me. Nope. But yeah. It's just, you need to be very intentional about love as well. Because when people die is when now you start saying, give them their flowers. Nah. So,
yeah, but like, you know, people die every day, one. But moms are...
It's the biggest, most painful loss you could...
A parent, yeah?
And I think two things happen to you at that time. Right when it happens, you become kind of numb. You know what has happened, but it has not sunk in. So I remember for like 2 days after, initially when I found out, I was very aware of what was happening. But it hadn't sunk in. 2 days later, it still hadn't sunk in. And then I had to go shopping for the things we were going to wear for the funeral, my siblings and I. And I remember walking out and the sun was shining so brightly. And people were going about their day like, everything is normal. I'm talking, you're going to town and people, you know, there's still that border guy who's saying, kss, kss, madam, I take you. There's still that taxi guy, you know.
Who's jazzing his stuff.
Like, people's lives are going on so normally. And yet you feel like your life has just ended. But it hasn't. A few months down the line,
how did you pick yourself up?
Again,
how did you get out of
community?
Because now I understand your mind space was in a position where you felt like you had ended. You just talked about the fact that you wanted to kill yourself. The only one time I've been in such a situation, I was going through a breakup. My stupid stuff.
Breakup is also grief in its own right.
I feel like everyone has to go through it and stuff. So, but that's the only one time I felt that bad. But up to date, I cannot really like explain how I got myself out. I don't even believe I really got out.
Because you be resilient, but you actually don't know. And life moves on. I think that's actually the silver lining. Life moves on.
The clock ticks, right? Every other second.
If there's anything that's inevitable, it's time and death. So you have to also acknowledge the fact that you'll have to go through that again.
So when you say your mom meant the world to you, what exactly do you mean?
I mean, literally, she meant the world to me. She was my everything. Everything. My beginning and end of...
Do you want to be the same mom to your daughter?
Definitely. But I don't think I'll ever do it justice. Like, ever do her justice, rather. Because to me, she was the most incredible mom. I did not feel one moment when I say, this chick is a terrible mom. Obviously, as a teenager, you know, you have those issues of, she won't let me go out partying with my friends. But we had such a close relationship and such a beautiful relationship that I think out of everything, I'm just sad that I'm going to get to miss out on that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that my children are going to miss out on it. And that all the people who didn't get to meet her.
So you want to have children?
Definitely.
Okay.
You said feminist.
No. It's not related to that. But in the beginning, you really had...
that psychological... I want to have kids when I'm ready to have kids.
There's no such thing.
I believe there is such a thing.
Yeah.
Hey, that's your...
At first, I thought it was the money.
No, it's not the money. You can have all the money, but emotionally, you're not mature enough to have a kid.
Yeah, but how do you know that you're going to be emotionally mature?
I think when you are ready to be
an adult?
Not an adult, but you're ready to know that you'll have to sacrifice a lot for this child, but know that the love at the end of the day should be more than anything. Like, you're willing to give yourself. Because by the way, when you become you're a dad, I think I don't need to tell you.
No, say what you're saying.
When you become a parent, you lose a part of yourself. That's the truth. And I'm talking, of course, from a very uninformed view, because I'm childless at the moment. But you need to give a lot of yourself. You need to start thinking about someone else way before you think about yourself.
I don't believe that's true.
Really? So you believe you can still be just as selfish even with a child?
We'll continue with this conversation. Thank you for coming to the podcast, Celine.
Now it's become interesting, but okay, we'll continue.